Welcome to the Spiritualpreneur Podcast. I'm your host, Christian, aka Love Pixel. And in each episode, we sit down with spiritual entrepreneurs sharing their knowledge, wisdom, and tools on their path to authentic success. Let's dive in. What's up, beautiful people? This is Christian from the Successful Spiritualpreneur Podcast. And today I'm super excited to dive deep into the concept of money with Hannah Kesler. And she is second generation to the infinite banking concept, which she will explain more on the podcast. This is a method that Hannah and her father travel all around the country to teach how to recycle, recapture, and keep total control of your hard-earned dollars. The Money Multiplier, which you can look up online at themoneymultiplier.com, teaches the importance of privatized banking, keeping money in the family, and how to break the bonds of financial slavery you don't even realize sometimes you're in. Hannah will be showing you how to get all the money back for every car you'll ever buy, drive, and own for you and your family for the rest of your life. And if it works for a car, what else do you think it can work for? Anything. Products, services, investments. Her dreams are to continue delivering the message of how money really works, building her real estate empire, become a fashion designer, and start her own clothing line as well as boutique, and one day become the brewmaster owning her own Barcade. With wealth management tools, she knows those dreams will become a reality sooner than later. Welcome to the show, Hannah.
Christian, I'm so excited to be here today. And I'm even more excited to talk about my favorite topic, money.
I love that. Yeah, it's such an important topic that I think, especially in the spiritual community, often gets kind of like brushed under the rug. It's kind of something you pretend to have, even if you don't have it in a way. So I'm really excited you're on today, just like being real, being straight with money. And let me ask you this. I think one of the coolest missions or concepts or philosophies that you bring to the table is to really help people realize that they're the creator of their money story,
Yep.
and not as much as they are the victim.
Yes.
So how can we teach people that more?
Yeah. I think honestly, where it first starts off with is your mindset when you think about your money, because how you think about your money is going to greatly impact how much money you have. I'll even tell you, actually, just this past weekend, my girlfriends and I, we have a book club. All right. And so we get together once every quarter. We meet monthly, though, on Zooms. And so we met in person at my place, and we just got done with this book called The Psychology of Money, and it's written by the author Morgan Housel. And in that book, Morgan talks about whether you want to care about it or not, you're going to have to. It's your health and your wealth. And I think people just, we first of all aren't taught about money, especially me, who can say that as being a Gen Z just graduating high school in 2017, not that long ago. I mean, I didn't even know how to write a check, for goodness sakes, you know? So we just really aren't taught the basic fundamentals when it comes to
Mm,
money. And so when we get into or have a source of income or a windfall that comes in, we just don't know what to do with it. And money at its core is nothing more than just a means of exchange. It's a tool, it's a resource that we can get ourselves to that next level. And I think a lot of people just have that incorrect or almost backwards, where they get money that comes in and they just want to hoard it. They want to act out of that scarcity mindset, and instead of being abundant in their thinking when it comes to money, because they're just not taught it. So it's like, hey, when I get money that comes in, I'm just going to hoard it. But if you almost put it into like a perspective of, why do people do things with money that they would never do with things that money buys? You know, people are out here putting money away into like a 401k, a qualified retirement plan, and they do it because they're like, well, my parents were doing it. My boss told me it was a good idea. My friends, my colleagues are all doing that same thing with their money. But think about it. Me being 25 years old here today, as of this recording, you know, if I were to go and put money inside of like those qualified accounts, and then I would have to wait 34 and a half years into the future until I'm age 59 and a half just to avoid the 10% penalty. I mean, that would be crazy if I took that same analogy and went out and purchased myself like a house or a car and then waited 34 and a half years to move into the house or drive that car. That would just be stupid. It would be ridiculous. And it's like, y'all, why are we doing things with money that you would never do with things that money buys? So money at its core, it's just a means of exchange. Money for food, food for money, money for car, car for money, money for house, house for money. That's all that money is.
I
So,
love that. Yeah, I think that's really great. And with that comes the concept of ownership, which I feel like I'm originally from Germany. I came to the States 8 years ago. But over there, obviously, like the concept of ownership is a little bit more prevalent.
mm,
Um, because I feel here in the United States, a lot of times to own something, it takes something in a way. Like you have to like pay the whole thing. You know what I mean? Like a lot of people just are renting or financing like everything in their lives. And I just recently bought my first car, and it feels good. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like,
congrats.
I'm not sure if it's financially, like if you look at the grand scheme of things, buying a car is not the smartest thing because it is still a depreciating asset. But I wanted to own a car for a long time, and
Mhm.
I finally bought it, and great. I'm not sure if I'm gonna buy another one because again, maybe it's not the smartest thing to do. I have other investments as well, but I'd really love to hear from you what you think are smart things to own in the current, system and time that we live in.
Yes, yeah, yeah. No, and I can get into that. And too, I'll share with your listeners because they're probably thinking, well, hey, what does this 25-year-old know about money? What has she been doing over there? So this whole realm of what we teach, the infinite banking concept, I mean, I'm truly second generation to this concept. And I'll even tell you, it's been very interesting, like in my upbringing, where my dad is more so new money and my mom is more so old money, where she grew up in a farm in Illinois and they were in the farming business, then into the printing business. They were all entrepreneurs, where my father really didn't have that. So it was interesting seeing those two backgrounds come together. But up to this point, just following, like my dad was my first ever, and I'll even say maybe my favorite mentor ever. And then you'll notice this too, like sometimes you'll kind of outgrow your mentors. I kind of got to that point with my father that now I have some other coaches that I really work with deeper and deeper. But starting my first bank at 18 years old and then becoming a millionaire by the time I was 24 because I really put action behind the thoughts and what people were doing. I literally just mimic and imitate what the people in my lives or even of the outside spectrum, what they're doing in the lifestyle that they're living. And I'm like, hey, I want to live that same lifestyle. So how can I just copy and imitate exactly what you're doing? And that's really what has gotten me to the point of where I'm at now. So now I just share and say, hey, this is what I'm doing. It's working out for me. Just sharing the message. So to answer that question, in my opinion, and it's funny because actually I just did a podcast on this same topic. It was the best purchases to make in your 20s. And honestly, at its core, though, I do believe where we first got to start off with is you need to be saving, not just saving for something. You need to just be saving, have some emergency dollars, something set away because you don't know what's going to happen. I mean, hey, let's just look at the COVID times where people were laid off or they didn't have work for months and months because places were shut down. And that back at that time, the savings rate in America was less than 2%. Now it's going back up slightly because I think people see what happened and they're like, oh my goodness, I just need to prep for these unseen times. So I've always followed a principle that it doesn't matter how much you make, it only matters how much you keep. So when I get money that comes into me, the first thing that I do is I take a sliver of it and I pay myself first. And starting out, I would suggest to do at least 10%. Save at least 10% of what you're making. Pay yourself first. And so when I take that sliver, I move it to the side and I put it into a total separate segregated account. So that is me paying myself first. And then with the rest of my money bucket, then I'll go pay everybody else next. Because you should be treating yourself as your number one asset and that number one person in your life, because you truly are. You know what I mean? So at first, what I do before I go and make any investments or purchases, I pay myself first. Then, what I would say is like that step two into that is I would really start buying myself cash flowing assets. So, I'm never going to tell people how to go make their money, how to go invest their money. But if y'all want to have those buddy conversations, we can, and I'll tell you what I'm doing. But that has really gotten me into knowing how to go put my little green men to work. Because that's how I think about the dollars. Your dollars are your little green men, and the objective is go put the little green men to work for you to create an army of green men. So then I no longer have to trade my hours to go out there and get my little green men. And so from there, what I do is I go and I take my dollars that I'm paying myself first. I go buy myself those cash flowing assets. Me personally, I love private lending. That's just what I do. I have my dollars go out and I lend it to other borrowers, mostly on real estate. And y'all, you'll be surprised. I mean, some people think that you got to have a boatload of money to get into lending. Nah, there's like deals on there where people are needing like $10,000 for 6 months, you know? So I would go and I'll put those into those investments. And then every month when those borrowers are paying me back those interest checks, that's what I then use to pay my monthly expenses. And I buy my food, fun, and fashion is what I call it. So I go and I go to the movies, or I go bowling, or I'll go out on my paddleboard, go out to dinner or something, go and buy myself clothes, right? And so I have those investments pay for that. So then I just keep rinsing, repeating that full cycle. So it's more so how can I go put my dollars out there to work to create that cash flow coming back to me. And then that's what I use then to pay for the depreciating assets.
Beautiful. I love that. And explain us more about the infinite banking concept. I'm sure what you just said is somehow part of it, but what's the whole thing? Like for somebody who's completely new to it, yeah, we'd love to hear.
Yes. Well, let me share this book with y'all, okay? Becoming Your Own Banker by R. Nelson Nash. I highly recommend that everybody needs to add this book to their wealth building library. So everything that I teach and I talk on comes directly from this black book, Becoming Your Own Banker. But from a 30,000 point view, really, the infinite banking concept is essentially just taking back the control of the banking function in your life. See, R. Nelson Nash in that book, and he was actually my father's mentor, and unfortunately, Nelson passed away at the age of 87 back in 2019, March of 2019. But Nelson talks about how you want to be in two businesses in your lifetime. The first business is the one that you're passionate about, gets you up out of bed every day, supports the family, supports the lifestyle. But then the second business is your banking business, the business that finances everything throughout your life. And that's what this whole concept is. It's controlling the banking business, because we're not taught again about money. What we're taught is, hey, go out there, go find a good job, go get your paychecks, max out that 401k, and then let the government take care of you. And it's like, how well has that been working out for folks up to this point in our lives? So what it is instead of me going out there and when I create money into myself, it doesn't matter how you make the money, you got to make money to live on this God-given earth we call America. So you go out there, you make the money, and then it comes in, and our options essentially are okay, I can take this money, I can go put it into somebody else's bank, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, et cetera, et cetera. And then what those bankers do is they use our money and they make a good living off of our money. So that's one option. I could leave it at the bank. I could stick it underneath my mattress or put it into my sock drawer, dig a hole in the backyard, or I could leave it with the financial advisor who thinks they can manage the money better than I can. And that's kind of all that we're left with. So, what this concept really teaches is how to create your own private monetary banking system through the vehicle of whole life insurance. Oof. And then once I said whole life insurance, it's like 90% of the people clicked off. They're like, oh my gosh, here we go. Whole life insurance. I know everything there is to know about whole life insurance because Dave Ramsey and Susie Orman, they told me it's the worst place to put my money. And I get it, okay? Because actually my dad was a Dave Ramsey's baby step follower. And so he actually even heard about this concept in '06, thought it was too good to be true, bought Nelson's book, put it on the shelf and didn't do anything with it. And then 2008 is when he actually started implementing this because a lot of his colleagues had to go out there and be the guinea pigs first and try the system out. So this whole life insurance, though, just to be totally clear, it's not just a traditional whole life policy they can go and buy off the shelf from your brother-in-law that sells life insurance. Because we all got a brother-in-law that sells life insurance, do we not? So no, it's not that traditional whole life policy. It has to be designed specifically for this infinite banking concept, meaning that when I put money into this policy, immediately, and my definition of immediately is within 30 days, I have access to the cash value that's in there that I can take out the cash value and go do something with it. So it's got to be designed specifically for high immediate cash value, and you want to work with a mutually owned insurance company. But more on that, I can share like my presentation and how folks can access it later. But that's what it is. It's instead of me keeping my wealth inside of the commercial banks and I'm making the bankers rich and wealthy, I'm placing my deposits into my bank. And then now I'm the one who makes the interest, the profits, the dividends.
Beautiful. And I would say, how complicated is that to set up, or how easy is it to set up?
Oh, yep. So honestly, it is pretty easy, but you do have to go through some steps because at the end of the day, it is still life insurance. So you got to go through the motions of the application and then the exam if the underwriter finds it necessary to get health qualified for the policy. Because I always say it's a privilege to own a policy, it's not a right to own a policy. So you got to go through those steps, and it's easy. And I have my application team over here that's what they do all day, day in and day out, is helping folks get approved for their policies, being that middleman or middlewoman between them and the underwriter. But it's about a 4-week process, though. So that's the thing. If people come up to me and they're like, hey, Hannah, this stuff is awesome. This is magical. I want to do something like this. Here, take my money. Well, we can't just start it today. You got to go through those steps of the underwriting and the approval process with that insurance company. But it's just those 2 steps, the yes and no health questionnaire, and then maybe an exam. And the examiner will literally come out to your house and do all of it. They going to take a little blood, you'll pee in a cup, and then stand on a scale. But then all of that information gets sent over to your underwriter, and then hopefully they give us that approval.
Cool. And what would you say to people who already have a life insurance?
Ooh, good question. So depending on what it is, now I will say term insurance, the one that a lot of people are familiar with, term insurance does not build up cash value. We like it though because it's cheap, all right, and it's protecting us. Like I said, we are our number one assets and our ability to create and contribute, but it doesn't build up any cash value. So for my folks who do have term policies, keep it for right now. But then when you feel like you're adequately insured through the permanent whole life policies, that's when I would go in and start canceling out the terms. So that's term, but then there's other vehicles out there like index universal life, variable universal life, or maybe you have a whole life policy. Maybe your grandparents got it for you, or your parents when you were very little and you just got this thing. Hear me out. What you should do is go to that company that you have that policy with and request for an in-force illustration. In-force, INFORCE, in-force illustration. And if y'all want to, this I do this all day long. Send it over to me to my email, Hannah spelled the same way as forwards and backwards, Hannah at themoneymultiplier.com. And I'll take a look at it and I'll just put myself in your shoes and I'll say, hey, if I had this policy, this is what I would be using it for. Because I'll tell you, last point I'll make on that, a whole life policy, even if it wasn't designed on the forefront for this infinite banking concept, if it's got some age and maturity on it, there's probably cash value in there, and you could probably be using that policy for things that you're financing and buying in life. So I would just take a look at it if you got an old whole life policy.
Okay, cool. I love that. And so the infinite banking concept only works with a life insurance, one way or another, correct?
It's the ideal vehicle to use because of the features and benefits, and I can get into those if you want, but you could still practice this concept with like a savings account, for instance, with the same habits and the principles. But why we want a whole life policy is because number one, it's a protected asset. So, God forbid, if you ever get sued, have a judgment or lien against you, no one can come after the money in the policies, but they could come after the money in your bank accounts. So we like that it's protected. We like that it grows tax free. Because here's the thing, I want to pay tax on my money one time only at the lowest rate possible, and then get that money into a tax free environment where now it's growing tax free for me. Totally opposite to what we've been taught, with those qualified
Mhm.
accounts. But we like that it's tax free. We like that it's protected. We like that it has a death benefit because it's not an if it happens, it's a when it happens. And then finally, if I have my investor glasses on, my favorite thing about it is I'm able to still earn compounding interest even though I go in there and I leverage or pull that cash value against my policy out and I'm using it out here in the real world. I sum it up and I say I'm double dipping on that dollar because I'm always and forever earning that guaranteed uninterrupted compounding in the policy, and I can make money over here in that investment deal that I'm doing. So I'm double dipping on it. And that's my favorite part, I would say, about it.
That's cool. I like that. And how would it work, let's say, on a very practical level? Let's say I have a company, I'm an entrepreneur. Um, maybe it doesn't matter whether it's an LLC or S corp, whatever it is. Like, let's just say we have a company entity, right? How would I take money from the company, maybe not paid out as a salary to me, which I pay personal income tax for,
Mm-hmm.
but take that and put that into the infinite banking concept, so to say?
Yes, yes. Because right now I'm doing the same thing for my employees over here, but I'll even talk like when Pops used to be a chiropractor, because that's where he heard about this stuff. He was actually at a chiropractic conference, and there was a gentleman up on stage teaching about this. So that was my first ever job when I was 14 years old. Was a CA, the front desk person at one of Dad's chiropractic clinics, and then I got fired. That's a story for another time. but but that's how Dad would use it within the clinics. He would use the cash values to pay the salaries of his key employees, finance the adjustment tables, pay the rent or the overhead expenses of that office. So what he would do is the business can actually own the policy if you wanted it to. An entity can own it, like a trust or the business, or you can personally own that policy. but then the business will pay the premiums inside of that policy. And so now when the business pays those premiums, it goes in there, and check with your accountant or CPA, because I'm not a tax professional, but depending on the business, it can be, the premiums can be counted as a tax deduction. Okay. But go check with your CPA. And then the premiums would get paid into the policy. And then when Pops would need money, or he would want to take out the cash value, he would take out the cash value. You can direct that money to get deposited into any account that you tell the insurance company. Have them do an ACH, a direct deposit, or they'll send you a paper check in the mail. But that cash value is always made payable to the owner of that policy. So if the business was the owner, the business would be the one that would receive that loan money. And then you can use, now that bank account then is where the cash value is held at, and that's how you go and pay the salaries, expenses, et cetera, et cetera. Because that's the thing too, there's no limitations to what you can use the cash value for. I could go down and buy a pack of chewing gum down at the convenience store with my policy money if I really wanted to, but there's no limitations of what you can use it for.
Hmm. Nice. I love that. All right, beautiful. So let's shift gears a little bit,
Okay.
and I would love to just dive into what you think makes, like, what's the best starting point, like apart from the book for people, like how can you start, like is there, would you say watch this YouTube channel or read these three books? So, like, where do people start? Because like people need to get familiar with this concept. I think especially around the concept of money, like, oh yeah, this is great, let me just do this. Like they need to like digest a little bit more information.
Yes.
Where can people start? What's the most easy way to start?
Yeah, I would say definitely the book, Becoming Your Own Banker. You could read that. Or if you're not too much of a reading individual, you kind of absorb information or you learn it in a different format. On our website, themoneymultiplier.com, if you go to themoneymultiplier.com/presentation, start there, click the button that says Watch Brent Now. Brent's my father, so you'll be able to meet him. But that is a 90-minute presentation that really gets into the fundamentals of what is this infinite banking concept? Why do we even want to practice this? How are we even implementing this stuff? So that's a really good place to start, because when I travel around the country or I'm doing my TV interviews and different things, that's what I really teach on, is that presentation. So start there, I would say, is my best guideline for y'all. And then also, I have my podcast show, The Money Multiplier Podcast. Every Tuesday, I upload on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. You can go there and check it out. And last thing, I'll give this gift to your audience just for being here today. And y'all keep tuning into Christian stuff. I mean, it's been amazing just listening to some of the stuff that I've been tuning into myself. But if you send me an email, Hannah at themoneymultiplier.com, I will send you a copy of our ebook, Mapping Out the Millionaire Mystery. So, this is actually a book that my father and then Chris Noggle wrote together. Some of y'all may know Chris Noggle if you're in the real estate space. He actually had a show on HGTV at one point called Risky Builder. But that would be another resource too. If you go to Chris Noggle, Naugle, on YouTube, he's got a boatload of content too. But I know in the forefront, it might feel like you're drinking out of a fire hose, because I get it. I felt that same way. And I've been around this stuff since I've been like pooping in my diapers. But just stay with it. Just take little snippets or little bite sized chunks every day, I would suggest. You can do it every week too. But you got to put actions behind those thoughts, because if you don't have the action behind the thoughts, then you're not going to get to the results. And do you want to see yourself in the same position you are today next year, 5, 10, 15 years from now? I mean, I personally want to keep evolving and growing with myself.
Beautiful. I love that. Yeah, so everyone, check out the moneymultiplier.com online, and Yeah, really think about your money journey. I think a lot of us are still, early mid 30s. We're like, where should we put our money? Where should we invest our money? Like, I feel like in the early 30s, you're still like, I got time. But once you're 40, you're like, I gotta put this thing somewhere because
Yeah.
because you want money to work for you. And obviously, the earlier you start, the better.
Mhm.
So time is really your friend when it comes to anything money related.
Yeah.
So
And
yeah.
Christian, I'll even add too, it's this stuff is not being tried or tested. If you go follow other wealthy families' journeys, like the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, the Morgans, the Stanleys, the Barclays, I mean, if you really look at what they were doing within their own family and how they kept the money in the family and were creating the wealth within the family, this is exactly what they were doing. There's another book out there who's a good friend of mine, Garrett Gunderson, and he wrote a book called What Would the Rockefellers Do? And it talks all about the Rockefellers' waterfall methods and how they keep that generational wealth growing and growing. Because if you have ever heard of that quote, hey, wealth is really deteriorated within like 3 generations, I don't want that to happen to my family. I really want to leave a legacy. I want to leave a footprint and leave this earth better than what I arrived in or where I found it at. And that's really where I have such a passion with this, is because yes, it can help you and yourself, but it's so much more than that.
Beautiful. I love that.
Um,
All right, cool. Well, we're coming up towards the end of the episode. I want to ask you a couple more questions and then close out. So, what let us know, like, what or who currently inspires you in your entrepreneurial, spiritual, or financial journey?
yeah. I would say right now, two people come to my mind. One of them is my mentor. He's also my media coach, Clint Arthur. He really pushes me outside of my comfort zone, and I appreciate that. And he gives me that constructive criticism that I need to hear, even if it hurts my feelings. I'm like, okay, I'm going to take this because it makes me a better person. And then also, if y'all know Grant Cardone, his wife, Elena Cardone, I've just been loving the work that she's been doing out there, especially for women, because let's be real, and not to just pick on women here, but especially in the financial space, we need more women out there teaching and spreading our powers and our message. Because, in my opinion, I think that's the cool thing about having that male and the female energies kind of come together, because there's so much power dynamic that you cannot have your yin without your yang, in my opinion. So I just really enjoy Elena Cardone and what she's been doing too.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, it's a concept I often come back to on this podcast. Like, how much yin and yang is in this person, in this conversation, in this business, in this encounter? What I'm saying? Like, how does it feel? And I think right now we're at this big, crossroads in humanity where the feminine is kind of coming back online, right? So it's been such a male dominated space, especially finance, but like pretty much everything, like every system has been set up to be just like dominated by male and structure and systems and yada, yada, yada. And you can really feel how, like, on the marketplace, and what people are asking for, yearning for, is more of this softness, of this
Yeah.
relatability, authenticity. It's like, yeah, you can tell me information and the best information all day long, and you can be convincing and yada yada yada. But if I can't feel that you're really behind it, then it's like, yeah, no. You know what I mean?
And that connection really builds the trust. That's it. No matter what business you're in, it's all a relationships business. And you got to care and you got to nurture those relationships. And in my opinion, the best advice I've ever gotten was give your best stuff away for free. Because when you do that, if you help enough people get what they want, you in return are going to get what you want. That's a Zig Ziglar quote that dad taught us at a very young age.
Yeah, very wise, I think there's a lot of truth in that. So thanks for sharing that. And
Absolutely.
yeah, next question would be, what are 3 words you want to be known for after you leave this physical plane.
Mm,
Like
mhm.
this was Hannah in this lifetime.
Yeah, yeah. I think first one, fun. Because, like, what is this life without having a little bit of fun? Don't take life too seriously. So I would say fun. I would say I almost want to use the word life changer, but maybe impact creator. I the reason of why I do what I do is because the best feeling in the world is when your clients come up to you and they say, "You have completely changed my financial life." And there's no better feeling than that. So really just being that life changer and just impacting them. So fun, life changer, and not caregiver, but just being known as being caring, if that makes
Mm.
sense.
Yeah. Yeah, beautiful. I love that. Beautiful. Thanks for sharing that. And then as the last part of every episode, I always like to give it over to the guest to kind of like do a little vision exercise. Like, what are you looking to call in the months, in the years to come for yourself, your business, your brand? Yeah. What are you looking to call in?
What I'm looking to call in is actually getting up there with more. I don't want to say the word, maybe it's being more of that celebrity, being more of that household name. This stuff is so powerful that people will come up to me and they're like, "Oh my goodness, I knew there was something else out there to not allow me to be in these financial bonds that I don't even realize that I'm in. And you just delivering this is exactly what I needed." So honestly, I think it's being more of a household name for people. Whether it's the money multiplier, we actually talk about that a lot within the business, is that I want to be the Kleenex in this space. I want to be the Band-Aid, right? I want to be the Google of web search engines, right? So that's really what I'm calling in, is just keep spreading this message out there because people need to hear it.
Beautiful. I love that. And I think because of your age, you have a good chance.
Well,
Yeah.
hope so. Yes, I got a lot
Yeah.
of time.
If you start young, it's like I'm thinking about myself, like I have an agency that's Love Pixel, right? I have a tea brand. That's the second thing. It's called One with Tea. Because tea is a big passion of mine. So it's like I want to like how do I get this out there to like more people? I was like, let me start a tea product that is just in alignment with my values and all the things I love and the purity and all organic and blah blah blah. So I
Yes.
did that, and then the third thing is the personal brand, like Christian, like who is the person behind these brands, and what does this because the person evolves more. You understand? Like the agency is like that's the container to like create incredible personal brands and a beautiful brand essence that's aligned with who you are as a person. Um, and then the T is kind of like another branch, like of myself.
Yeah.
And then my personal brand, like I can still evolve. Like that's what kind of like about the personal brand. Like I can still evolve and like I don't know. Like right now I'm like 33. What do I want to be in like 10 years? I don't know. Like life changes fast. You know what I mean? So maybe I'll be for the next 5, 7 years. Like I'm moving more from like I'm the guy who grows your business to like I'm the T instructor and Zen guy. Who brings you into alignment. And then after that, I don't know. We'll see.
Yes.
But it's nice to have the flexibility and at the same time these different containers that people can engage you with.
That's right. That's
So
right. And it's always evolving too, is it not? Just
yeah,
even within yourself. That's I think one of the most fun things about being business owners and entrepreneurs is that you're going to be forced to have those hard conversations with yourself, and you're going to grow internally because you're not going to be the same person you are today that you were when you started your business, just because of some things that you had to overcome and just change within your mindset of what
yeah,
you're doing. So
yeah.
that's
Not only that, you also like change because of like external influences. Like you might be a mother. You're like, well, I kind of want to do more for this, like for parents now, or something with kids. Like it also just yeah. I think the personal brand is really nice because it gives you the flexibility of like I'm all this, but I'm like I'm a person and also you know what I mean. Like it's like a tree.
yes, yes. Hey, and you're not too far from me. We got to catch up sometime in person.
Yeah, it'd be an honor to brew you some tea, have a little tea ceremony.
I love that.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, thanks so much for being on, Hannah. It's been such an honor. And yeah, thanks for sharing everything.
Absolutely. I'll see you soon. Thank you, Christian.
All right.